one and all, to the EMEA Summer Masters. I am Just Ushy, and I'm joined by the notorious Nightmare as we're going to be bringing you the three last games of the day. You are notorious. If Ari gets picked, I don't even need to speak anymore. I'm going to leave. That's just how it is. But how are you doing, man? It's been a while.
I am much better. Now I get to actually be on stream and talk about some stuff. So we've been sat in the background a little bit. I didn't get to cast on game one. I was chomping at the bit watching those games happen by. And now we get to take over the second half of the day for Group B, coming up on your streams right here. And what from the games you've already seen, we have seen some really cool stuff.
Yeah, we really, really do. And I mean, look, coming into this one here, I think SK Prime are definitely going to be looking to try and bounce back, I think is the easiest way to put it. They took a pretty hefty loss, to be perfectly honest, earlier on in the day. And they're going to be looking to try and make sure that they do not allow that to kind of snowball into a dangerous day.
And I think the sad thing about their game against BK Rogue is that it felt like there wasn't really much to be said about that game. They lost lanes very, very heavily, particularly to the Tristana of Checklight. It's a very strong champion, don't get me wrong. He roamed across the map, he tore them to the map, and he just tore them to pieces. So now, SK Prime, I think what they need is just a solid start. Draft yourself some winning lanes. You can get towards the team fights, which you're really, really good at. This is our Prime League champions. They did fell the Unicorns of Love, who are, of course, one of the most notorious ERL win streakers in terms of titles ever in the ERLs. They finally took them down in the finals in this summer, but this has not been a great start to EMEA Masters so far.
No, and the funny thing is as well is that SK Prime were kind of uncontested throughout the Prime League. Like, they went 15-3 in the regular season, 6-0 in their 2 best-of-5s in the playoffs. They didn't drop a single game in the, kind of setup there. So coming in, kind of feeling the first real defeat, shall we say, for the first time in, kind of quite a few weeks, can definitely start to get you thinking about different things. But if we know this team and you see the names on your screen, you know there's just such star quality, and the ceiling can go so high.
Particularly for the top side of the map, these names are not just ERL standout kind of household names. They're also players which have occasionally dipped them towards the LEC as well. Genax, very recently on the SK main roster, did very, very well up there. Considering, felt like he was one of the more solid LEC top laners in his time there. Of course, Feb been one of the EU greats in terms of that mid lane. It's been a while since he's been up there in the LEC or the EU LCS, really, in his era. But all of these players across the map feel like they are of a pedigree, really at the top of the ERLs.
Now, and we got to talk about the other side of this matchup right now, because DSYRE came out swinging. Now, if they can keep that momentum, that's great. But the PG Nats right now are looking insane. Like, this is an incredible kind of start to the tournament for both their teams.
And particularly for the support and top lane duo of Imperios and then also Nash, there's a story a little bit closer to my heart as well, because they used to even be in the NLC on Riddle back in 2022. Nash then played in Ruddy Esports a little bit later as well. But both of these players have been around these different ERLs. I've had the chance to cast them before. And then Imperios, the artist formerly known as Jaxplank, has rejoined with this support duo, and they have been so, so good. Nash, his growth as a player for this team has been exceptional too. I remember him being like a rel one trick and getting these crazy engages, but it feels like he has so many more strings to his bow now, and he ended up being that summer MVP in the PG Nats. And importantly for DSYRE as an entire team, they are proving that this isn't just a one-team region. It's not just the Matchgoer show. It's not just that one team. Both PG Nats teams are looking very strong.
Absolutely, and from an uncredited ERL, they are making waves. Let's see if they can continue on the 100% win streak so far here in the main stage. But we're going to jump straight in onto the picks and bans, and already we're starting to see the Jax and the Jaxplank getting taken away here by the side of SK Prime.
It used to be so easy, because you see the name Jaxplank in your lobby, and it's like, well, I guess we've got to ban that.
That's probably why he banned it. Like, he took it away.
You now have to look at the Leaguepedia and say, oh, he used to be called that. I wonder if he still plays it. Now you have to consider stuff like the Darius as well. He played so incredibly well on that before. I really feel like if you give DSYRE strong winning early lanes, particularly for Imperios on that top side, things go from bad to worse very, very quickly. Genax, however, one of our strongest individual laners in the ERLs, particularly in that top lane too. He has always been very, very solid. This is going to be a good benchmark matchup on an individual level for the top lane of DSYRE.
And sad Nightmare Arias gets banned away as well. You do get Kadui's Kalista.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's okay.
Don't cry.
Builds.
Don't cry. It's fine.
Okay, cool. I'll just imagine it would have been an Everfrost game anyway, and I'll feel better about life.
That's how you make yourself feel better. It's just like they're all scrubs and no one knows how to build it properly. But look, good kind of, you can see the kind of priorities being put into Febivin right now. Not getting into LeBlanc, not giving the priority on the Tristana. And of course, Kedui's in the game. You're going to have to get rid of that Kalista as well. So DSYRE have done a little bit of their homework, but as we've always said, it does leave open those OPs, and the Kalista, or sorry, not the Kalista, the Kai'Sa being picked up here gives you a lot of freedom to kind of build whatever the hell you need to build.
It does. Kai'Sa's a strong first pick, but you've given up something. I mean, the Rumble's locked straight in, so that's going to be fun towards the top side. That is going to be very fun to watch in terms of that benchmark top lane matchup. But stuff like Azir and Rakan, that's the last one which I wanted to talk through as well. But DSYRE, they're on a quick click. They are really going through these picks very fast. Nash has himself a strong laning champion as well. Ever since the Q buffs to Rakan, the sustain in lane makes it very hard to win against Rakan if he starts hitting Qs, but then also has those engage angles and can join those skirmishes, which DSYRE have been so strong in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the DSYRE definitely looking to try and, as you say, utilize the power of the Rakan, getting going in the mid game with that equalizer as well. So we'll see what they kind of combo up with this team they've built so far. The Jace gets locked in here. Does make a lot of sense. The Kai'Sa and the Jace makes your poke incredibly potent, and there they get the Rel as well. So I think for DSYRE, you go for the Xayah right here. I just gotta say, look, we're happy with this, and we're gonna kind of get our top and our jungle in our next rotation.
I'm gonna do this once for this stream. But in the LPL, which we're a little bit familiar with, this Rel pick is such a bread and butter thing. The reason why we see it over there, and in other regions across the world, but I think it's especially there. You pick a Rel right here as SK Prime. Where's it going? Is it going jungle? Is it going support? It's fine in both right now. There's nothing forcing it into one thing or another. And yes, you're on blue side. You won't get to hold that to a full flex potential to change your draft very quickly. But it's one of the very few champions that can be put between jungle and support. I think Maokai is really the only one in regards to that. So DSYRE, they don't really know what's going to happen with the laning phase right now. They could still be that Kai'Sa Rel, which is fine. You can kind of survive that lane. You get pushed in, but it's not necessarily the best lane for them. But there's still every chance that they swing a bit of a curveball at you with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that having that flex does tend to be... Sometimes you can get lost in the sauce, is what I like to say. Sometimes you gotta go, we're gonna try so many different things.
Too hard.
Yeah, you flex too hard and you end up pulling a muscle as it ends up coming out like that. But, I mean, for DSYRE, they're setting themselves up very, very nicely. I wouldn't even be surprised to see them go for something like we have seen kind of fringe on within the Jarvan, or even just kind of some kind of solid lockdown to keep everybody in one area so you can get the AoE out for the feathers. You can use that massive flame spitter and equalizer to its fullest advantage. I like the Poppy ban, I like the Nocturne ban. Again, just getting rid of engaged champions on the side of SK Prime. So, and there's a Sejuani.
Sejuani was the last, I guess, S-tier jungler left in the pool at this point. You take it away from the Jace, it means that it's not the AoE CC, but as long as one person is stunned into the feathers and into the equalizer as well, they're dying. That CC is still there, With the Rakan as well, it gives you another engage option, so both of them can kind of take some of the pressure off of each other to kind of wait for all the cooldowns. You can blow some of them either way, and now we get something a little bit different. Okay. Yone, Rel, very hard engage, and the Rel is going to go in towards the jungle. The flex pick is going to be used, and the Alistar goes into support. So now lots of engage. We are assuming this Yone goes in towards top lane as well, which again, how did we start this draft? We said, hey, Emperos, he's a pretty good individual top laner. Really good when he gets an individual laning advantage. Jenax sees that, puts one further, and locks in the Yone.
And there's the Azir you were talking about as well. The bird is the word, and the bird gets locked in as well. Last pick, Azir. Regardless of how it ended up happening, these are the compositions now to their fullest. We will see if that Jace and Yone end up getting swapped around a little bit. We'll wait till obviously they're all settled in, but we do anticipate it being a Yone top with the Jace at the bottom. I will say Jenax is someone who has picked up the Jace as well, so not unheard of to see him pick up this champion.
It's just a problem of Jace in long lanes anymore. Ever since Eclipse got changed away from having Omnivamp, if you take one bad trade and you're pushed in, you die for free. Before, you could kind of outplay a little bit more because you're pretty much always full HP when you're taking minions down, and then you have the Omnivamp from Eclipse. But say in this, if you had the Jace top lane and you were going into the Rumble and the Sejuani turns up when you're anywhere over halfway point, you die for free. So that's why Yone with the Soul Unbound, yes, I got that one right, I'm pretty sure, can at least play a little bit more safe and then have the Q for the extra ability to get out.
Yeah, that's the big thing as well. If you got lots of, we talked about a huge amounts of engage. Kai'Sa diving in with you, Alistar, Rel, so many ways of kind of joining into it. However, if you don't get that engage all off, if you don't find yourself in a kind of a perfect setup, there's a lot of re-engage coming in from them. They're just great kiting ability as well from the Xayah and of course the Azir. So you're going to have to be pretty on point here at SK Prime to make sure you're getting those engages off and not just kind of committing to your death.
Now, the lucky thing is, Yone adds in an engaged threat, of course, from a solo lane, which is not as common. We used to see it, I mean, with stuff like Nico or Annie in the meta, you can see it a bit, but particularly with something like the Yone, you can do all of your own stunts. You don't really need a stunt double. But when you have so many engaged threats on the team, it means that if you're sat there, particularly someone like Emperos or Aetanoth as well on the other side, you have to watch for so many cooldowns. You need to be very careful about how you use yours. If it was just one engaged threat, you can be sit a little bit more pretty. When you overload the engage, that's when you get some of the really special team fights.
Minions have spawned.
My head went into a whole different thing as soon as you said pretty. I was like, am I pretty? Should I ask him? And then I heard what you said, but it was just my mind.
Are you asking for affirmation?
You know what? Sometimes
you're the prettiest caster. You're the prettiest caster I've cast with today.
Aw, thank you so much. You did a practice cast with Initialize. That makes me feel so much better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sam. I didn't mean for you to catch strays right now. I did not mean for you to catch strays.
Oh, God. Starting things off well. Lovely. Oh,
but yes, coming into this one, obviously, we're going to be seeing exactly how good DSYRE can be. Of course, they did win in their match earlier today, but let's be real, kind of longer we're looking at this, the more we're kind of thinking that the Ultra Liga might not be as strong as maybe many had hoped. So this is a bit more of a litmus test, and honestly, if they can take a win here, I mean, sky's kind of the limit for them there. They're looking very, very strong for, again, a kind of a top 2 finish to get them into quarters.
And that would also mean PG Nats go 5-0 at that point. They got one last game beyond that too, but a chance to keep a clean sheet for the PG Nats, a region which has had a patchy history in EMEA Masters. It really was this year where things started clicking up again with Matchco doing so well in spring, making quarterfinals. Online bit of an all-in, but level 2 hit should be fine. But that, again, that's the stakes for this team. There's regional pride here, folks.
More than just regional pride as well. Again, kind of like we kind of can't really overstate it really for the PG Nats. You got to remember they're an unaccredited ERL, which means they're not getting the same amount of support from Riot. They're not getting the same amount of funding and stuff like that. And it's just kind of, generally seen you're not getting the same amount of spots for the EMEA Masters. There's so many little things that aren't kind of lining up for you, and yet we're still seeing the PG Nats and Matchco alongside DSYRE kind of coming up clutch and saying, look, we're here to be counted, we're here to be played. So, kind of a bit of respect kind of given to the name now, even regardless of how the rest of the tournament goes.
Yeah, I think it's a question of who do you compare a region like that to. Of course, on the other side with Prime League, for the longest time, Prime League were consistently semi-finalists. They were really one of our strongest ERLs. It took a bit of a backseat, particularly as the LFL started to take off with the likes of Carmine Core and their 3-peat streak. But now you look at this too, both of these regions actually this year have found themselves a breath of fresh air. SK Prime made semis back in spring, and of course UOL made finals, losing out in a grueling series to the Istanbul Wildcats as well back in spring. It feels like both of these teams have had an uptick in terms of the narrative surrounding them. Now we actually get to see them face each other. I find that quite cool, that kind of likeness of trajectories.
Bit unfortunate there for the Sejuani. Did get caught out on the last little bit of vision there from the minions. They know exactly what's going on here, and that is emboldened Lorax to kind of go, okay, I can look for a little bit more of an aggressive play onto mid. It was just to cover the Rumble, for pushing it in aggressively. When we see on bot side now, bit of an aggressive play. There was no flash used there by Prime. Just straight up walked up and got himself an engage.
But we're not really seeing like huge advantages coming in. What these early lane trades really do is secure your first resets of the game. They allow you to move as a support. So for instance, if you have 80 carries recalling, it would allow Prime or Nash to wander off across the map and make something happen. Already though, things going better for SK Prime than they were against BK Rogue earlier in the day, where it did feel like Featherman was just absolutely demolished in the LeBlanc versus Tristana matchup. It's a hard matchup. This is a good trade.
Oh, Nash. Yeah, that was a scary moment there. Trigger discipline, though, there from DSYRE, not giving away the heal for free. Recognizing, look, if we get to level 4, which they have, he's got pots, we can survive. It's not that big of a deal, but these are the small little moments of the game that can lead to really, really big advantages if you don't calculate them right.
And particularly for the DSYRE Rakan lane, we talked about it in draft. Rakan is a strong laning champion nowadays, folks. If you hit yourself a load of those Qs, the Gleaming Quills, the healing that comes through from it, mean that you're pretty much always topped up. And as you can see, that actually wasn't the case. So Kedri and Prime doing a good job of making sure they can deny Nash strong laning phase.
I will say, though, it does feel a little bit unfortunate for the SK Prime bot lane. You get a great reset, you're all doing amazing things. However, it's still a DSYRE Rakan. They get their extra little passives, they can recall together. It's a bit unfortunate there, but you nevertheless always coming out on a little bit more on top. You always want to try and see as much, you get as much as you possibly can. That's kind of the big thing I always say, is that regardless of if you're getting a kill, you're getting a summon or anything, you're getting everything in your, that you possibly can out of a situation and making the most of it. So now, speaking of making the most of it, we can see there making the most of this Azir mid lane, kind of saying, look, we're going to go for an engage, get the flash out of Febby. That's good respect there from Febby, but now he doesn't have that summoner.
And while the CS advantage down bot side hasn't really materialized in anything, we talked about those first resets being important, and Nash made more of that first reset than Prime could do at the same time, partly because Zonics had the playmaking tool in that mid lane, so the draft coming into play at that point. Equalizer put in towards top side to just make sure that GenX can't get that one pushed in for free. Dragon started up. Prime looking low.
Yeah, gonna have the shifting sands, so Xenox is just fine. The Dragon is still being taken right now. Taking away the honey fruit as well. Prime seeing if he can be a bit more of a nudist. Remember, they don't have the Emperor's Divide. They did just put Emperor's down here as well. He doesn't have... There's no teleport, but First Blood goes over to the side of SK Prime. Forbidden, no flash. Trying to see if he can get away. A flash in on top of him will secure that one, so it's a 1-for-1 trade. Does Lurox want to go for a bit of a fight here? It would be risky, and yeah, no jungler means they can't go for it, but they can't just leave it alone. Otherwise, it'll just be taken for free. You have to re-engage onto this if you're decided DSYRE. You can't let this one just go for free. Everyone's just kind of coming themselves back down here, but yeah, I think it's just kind of done. There's just nothing you can do. You have to just let this one go for free. It's so unfortunate for DSYRE, but fantastic for SK Prime.
That was very close to DSYRE taking an uneven fight and getting the Dragon on top of it. But importantly, SK Prime, they find themselves a window to kill the jungler. It means they don't have smite. Now they have a Dragon advantage. Again, this is so much of a better early start for SK Prime compared to their first game of the day. They're much more stable. They have themselves some leads in various roles now as well, especially with the kill goal going over to the Kai'Sa. They are very happy with how that worked out.
Yeah, really, really well done. And not only that gives free time to GenX on the top side, so he gets himself now ahead rather than being behind. I mean, look, I like the idea there from DSYRE, but I mean, you've already used the equalizer towards that top side to cover yourself for the weak side play, and that just means that you're playing without a full hand at that point.
I still think it was a good angle, right? Because it's the Empress special of, hey, I'm just going to roam and kill the rest of the map. It just wasn't quite clean enough with the engage. So let's watch for that a little bit in the future. It hasn't led to a top lane lead difference so far, even with the wave pushed in, because of course that equalizer was used to give that free roam elsewhere. We're still in a fairly early game. Herald has spawned. Typically, Heralds are won by who has the better R buttons. It's fairly even in this game with the likes of the Rel ultimate being very strong, but I think with the equalizer coming back up, DSYRE should have first crack at this Herald if they want to try it.
See the 80 carry is just kind of sitting here on the bot side, making sure that they pick up as much farm as they possibly can. It's about a 30 CS lead though between these two 80 carries right now. Kirui just... Yeah.
Look at that. That's a full level advantage, though, in terms of XP as well. Yeah. We can talk about that in so many other ways, but that's dangerous. Engage towards top side.
Speaking about being dangerous, they're going to shifting Sans Lurox away, but he's already got so much kind of tankiness, innate just health built into him. They can't finish him off. A trade back kill, and Prime are starting to pick apart DSYRE.
That they are. SK Prime turning up to the right places with the right amounts of members. Great disengage play. Lurox gets out for free. And where we were saying, hey, DSYRE, they've got pretty good ultimates. They should be looking towards this Herald. SK Prime, they collect that play in the mid lane. They go towards the Herald themselves. That's another win in this early game, which is going to set themselves up for a lot of success.
A lot of early pressure being given in here. No, not going to be able to get that one there. I don't know if he's going to be able to run away from this one here. Should be just fine. Just waiting out a lot of time just before GenX kind of goes back to his soul unbound, just to make sure he doesn't die. But yeah, look, it was worth the punt. He doesn't lose his flash. He doesn't lose anything else off it, so not too bad in that sense of things. But I mean, yeah, like it's kind of becoming a bit of a lane diff. You can see it there, even in the Rumble lane, which is kind of, you know, known to be such a bully. It is the side of SK Prime coming out on top.
And something like the, well, you can talk about the Rumble being the lane bully, and that's very important. On the other side, Yone, very flippy matchups in top lane too, so the fact that Yone is in the game is typically quite bad. If Yone is in the game, Yone can engage onto you in those 5-man clumps later into the game. Both of these team compositions really want to be engaging around these big objectives. The way you win League of Legends is big engages around dragons, around heralds and barons. Having the Yone strong will very much help SK Prime achieve that.
How did SK Prime allow their support to call himself Prime? Now he's just SK Prime Prime. He is.
So funnily enough, Prime is a mathematical term anyway. So when you differentiate something, I think it's differentiate. You call something like, so if you have a variable of x, then you have x prime. But then if you differentiate it again, it's x prime prime. So there is what they have done is they have found themselves to be people of science, and I, for one, really appreciate that.
The only Prime I care about is Optimus Prime, all right? So that's the only Prime that I care.
I was saving that. We get to use that once a tournament. You've used it 11 minutes into a 3-kill game. I hope you're happy.
I needed to use it because you know what? Sometimes Prime is not. It's not Prime time.
You know what we could have had? Because Foot went out and play-ins, they have a top laner called Starscream.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, we could have had this.
Well, we could have had 2 Primes fighting to be the ultimate Prime. Because if you know your, do you know your Transformers lore?
I know that Megatron was someone cool at some point, less so. This is less cool. Genex is out.
He is out, or is he? He's going to try and dash away and gets burnt down by the Equalizer. He is not out, and he is not feeling very Prime about that at all. Now SK Prime looking to try and make do, though, with this move in the mid lane to say, look, yep, you went for this Pumeli. We're going to punish you. Flash for flash is always worth it for the jungler, as the DSYRE just has to try and do his best to clear out these waves.
Having a Herald shoved into your lane does not help for the ideas of wave clearing, because it's the first Herald as well. This now opens up the chance to SK Prime in a couple of minutes, if they do get another Herald, to basically take mid lane turret for free. 2 Heralds into mid lane turret is normally enough to secure that one, which is not something you often get for free against an Azir. Good wins for SK Prime, despite that top lane going a little bit awry and losing a plate towards that as well. SK Prime still in a strong early game state.
Dragon has spawned, though, and it looks like DSYRE want to try and fight for this one here. It's about a 1,500 gold lead, mainly, honestly, between the mid and the AD carry for the moment. Just wait to see kind of first items being completed. This Kai'Sa feels so far accelerated, and having these extra little bits of wards just scattered around, putting down a little poke here and there. The Void Seekers aren't hurting now, but they will start to. And that's when this game gets very, very scary. You can see Kedowi just kind of moving himself down, constantly pressuring to get some more plates, as the rest of DSYRE had to kind of take the long way around and group up as a 3.
Okay, so interested to see how top lane plays into this equation. Emperos doesn't have ultimate. He did come down without it the last time. Genex doesn't have teleport, though, and he will do. There might be a 5v4 situation at Brig.
It's a good poke. Do you want to try and go for this? A Hex Flash over?
Oh!
He's so cheeky, but he will not get out with his life. Or will he? Will they want to try and fight this one here? Flash in with the Pulverize. The Emperor's Divine to try and make sure nobody can go for this one. It's a very separated fight. A flash in from Pivot to help his AD carry, but it's a trade back of 1-for-1. A heal to help Nash as he wants to stay alive in this fight. You got that Kraken Slayer ticking up. 3 men get hit by the flail as they look to try and re-engage. It's one double knockup, but can they get any more of the kills? No! SK Prime are just too damn strong. It will see, though, the Sejuani rampaging forward, doesn't get the charge in as the Alistar was in the way. A double kill for the Alistar as Prime is feeling Prime.
Oh my word, DSYRE, are you okay? You just got hit by a smooth criminal. Lurox goes in, slides in, and does the steal on the objective, which Rylak couldn't do earlier in the day, earlier in the game around that Herald. It's a great fight for them afterwards. You could see that Genex was stopping Emperos from teleporting down to the fight by threatening some CC under that turret as well. SK Prime, they have a lot of gold in the right places now. Really big winners are that Kai'Sa and the Jace. Looking through this again, Lurox gets into the pit, and yes, he's then isolated beyond this point, but still using his Aftershock well, and he's just buying cooldowns. Rylak doesn't have his Arctic Assault after this point, you know? He's taking so much up. At the end of it, when it comes to a big fight, it doesn't actually matter if the tank has died, as long as your carries are available to do damage as well, and that's exactly what Kedowi and Featherman do.
And again, he's kind of constantly going in. You can see how low these health bars are, but just utilizing the maximum amount of that resource they could. And right at the end here, this little move forward just means that Sejuani cannot get off that last kill. You would have felt like, honestly, if he kills that off, it's not too bad there for DSYRE. But 4,000 gold down, or 3,500 gold down. And they're starting to really feel it. Look at this AD carry difference right now. Even with 2 kills going on top of the Xayah, it doesn't make a difference.
I was wondering whether Kedowi would even go towards just the Ludens right now as well, because it feels like a game where poke could be so disastrous for DSYRE to play against. You know, as soon as those W start landing, it gets a bit awkward. No dive going to happen in this top side. Genex sees that he's safe, starts charges up his Q, so that won't be a cross map available. And now you really have to see, what are you going to match power with this Kai'Sa? Is it going to be this Rumble in the top side? It's doing okay, 1-0-1. Yes, got a kill in a couple of different places. But it doesn't feel enough right now to outvalue that Kai'Sa.
That's the big thing, is the Rumble very situational, it feels like, because it does feel like you kind of have to find that team fight. You have to get a really good equalizer across like an escape route that either blows multiple summoners or in its own right kind of sets you and your team up to just kind of burn people down. So having it in the moment, It's fine. You do have the Night Harvester. I highly doubt he'll be going towards any kind of demonic embrace. It'll probably just be pure AP.
Not against this team.
Not against this team. So this is going to be kind of a do or die on the Equalizer. Going to be a lot of pressure now here onto Imperos just to make sure that he's getting that kind of value.
Right now, he does have the ult. He might need to use it to clear a wave. He sees the Herald there. Is he going to pull it? He's got teammates coming up, but if the engage comes quick enough, he will just pop.
Yeah, he needs to walk away. Doesn't need to take this fight any more than this team do, so he's just going to kind of get that reset off and back away to his tier 2. Speaking of resets, we did see the DSYRE go back and pick himself up a little bit of a Leandri's Torment. I'm surprised at that, to be perfectly honest. I'm not expecting it to too much. Again, we talked about how the Demonic Embrace isn't exactly great into this one. You don't really need that much tick damage, but, you know, we'll see if it ends up being the right decision later on in the game. It very rarely is a game decided by a poor, you know, a bad item choice. Rarely. I didn't say never, I said rarely.
So I think in this game, your choices normally are Ludens, Leandri's, and Crown. In this game, there's too much stuff which can randomly blow your Crown, a Shock Blast or whatever. And yes, sometimes in one game, you don't mind tanking up one long-range skill shot because that's an important one to dodge. Not in this game. However, you look on the other side of the team and you see 2 Merc trades already built up. That's because you've got 2 melee, or 2 AP solo lanes, and then of course you've got the CC from Sejuani as well. So the Leandri's better than the Ludens because of that MR being built up.
I mean, look, for SK, you're sitting pretty right now. You're happy with the way things are going. You're scaling up fantastically.
Ooh,
we are going to see go for a swing and a miss onto the Fate Seal, but I mean, look, he can go for that because, one, he had his jungler rolling up there just in case anything did kind of go down, but outside of that, he's kind of happy the way things are to just keep scaling. Look, they're being pushed all the way back. How are you going to defend against this Dragon take in 23 seconds when you can't even get your lanes in order?
That's a very good point. You have just asked the question I was going to ask as well, because this is the follow-on of 2 Heralds going to SK Prime. After the first one was taken, we said, hey, if a second Herald goes down, that might be mid lane for free. It's exactly what's happened, and now you can see that DSYRE in a very difficult spot, contesting these Dragon fights. And how do you win League of Legends nowadays? Normally by winning Dragon fights and Baron fights. They have a difficult situation to overcome in the next few minutes.
You can see they're already kind of grouping up here. Both GenX and Zynex have themselves a TP. So they're going to be trying to come into this fight a little bit later. Actually, never mind. They're going to come into it right now. Kedowi takes a fair chunk of damage, about just over a third of his HP. Now they start up this Dragon. No vision whatsoever here for the available for DSYRE. Now they're going to throw in their ultimates front to back, but can they even get in on top of this one? That's the question. They finally try and make something work here. Nash goes in, but a great ultimate kind of pushed back right on top of them with the Magnet Storm, and they're just going to get obliterated. There's only so much you can do here as DSYRE. You cannot defend this one, and you're going to have to walk away with just losing 1 member. Surprisingly enough, they only lose 1, but now sole point on for SK Prime. Wait to see now if they want to keep going for this one here. Lorax so tanky with that Radiant Virtue. Put out the Shurima's Legacy just to make sure there's nothing else to be done. But I mean, that was a fantastic disengage there from Prime and Lorax.
It was, but they still lose the Dragon. They still lose a kill. That play stops it being disastrous and just being quite bad. It's still a losing play for them, and now you're looking at over a 6,000 gold advantage to the side of the Prime League champions. Yes, they were blown out earlier in the day, but you cannot write this team off. And around this Dragon fight, a couple of things come into play. The mid lane outer turret being down means it it's harder for DSYRE to go into the play, and that leaves them open to clump up and get hyper engaged on by all of these different engaged champions that we highlighted for SK earlier on. DSYRE doesn't get opportune damage. You don't get opportune damage out of DSYRE because they have to move backwards so quickly. They can't match the DPS, and even if they did, it's into an Alistar with the ultimate. It's not the same value.
Well, the bot lane's dead. That's just how it is. Looks like SK Prime taking
so
that.
So what happened was, you know, till death do us part. Turns out if you die at exactly the same time, that's not even true that either. So I think they've really done justice to the lovers duo.
They're just trying to, you know, make the most out of it. That's all they're trying to do. But I mean, look, this is starting to become unassailable now for DSYRE. We were so full of kind of hope for them, but this is starting to become a little bit harder to see how they can come back into it. Unless they get a Miracle Steal right now.
It's a steal or nothing.
It's a steal or nothing. This is it. Burger flip. They're not even going to let it happen right now. You can see they're trying to just get him away from it. Yep, they keep him away long enough that he's not going to have any kind of impact. The Equalizer comes down, does very little. And unfortunately for them, it is going to kind of come back in. But it looks like, again, DSYRE just kind of running out of options here. We'll see how they got caught out in the mid lane. I think, yep, just too far pushed, and Prime just goes in.
Yeah, the Azir turret's dead. Prime presses all the buttons, and DSYRE doesn't get to move. They used the ultimate in that last fight. Nash tries their best to kill them out of it. Doesn't have anything towards that either, and this is one of the big problems with losing that mid lane turret so early. It's very difficult to defend yourselves. It's a mispositioning on top of that as well. DSYRE, it feels like they bought into too many bad situations after another, and now they're completely out of luck. Ow.
Yeah, that's a lot. I don't know if Kedowi wanted to go that far. He was definitely feeling himself. Look, he will not go down though just yet. They are going to throw out the ultimates here and try and catch out Lorax, but he's still got a crash down, so I don't really feel like you're going to be able to take him out. Honestly, it shows you how far ahead this Kai'Sa is. The fact that he can go all the way in and still know that he's going to get out because he has his summoners. Now they can re-engage and look to try and poke down these tankier members of DSYRE.
In what situation does that work out as a positive for SK Prime? Kedowi is still here, still regenning, still pushing them in, even after making it a very unwise play, we'll say, after that point. Sonic's trying something here.
Yeah, he's trying to go for something, but I don't know if that something's going to lead to a lot.
Oh,
a Void Seeker from 1,000,000 miles away. Double boiling trouble coming in here now for the Kai'Sa. And yeah, this game is all but over, you gotta feel like right now. They're just getting pulled apart, torn asunder, and they saw what their opponents did in the last game. They said, all right, bet we can do one better, because they're looking at a 23-minute win, and they're still going for it.
This is absolutely relentless. Kedowi still all guns primed.
I mean, all guns primed in the Prime League. SK Prime working with their support Prime, feeling pretty good about this game and bouncing right back to get themselves up to a 1-1 scoreline.
That was unceremonious for DSYRE. Sadly, the PG Nationals will find themselves their first loss as a region. I think it really came from that first lost fight around that bot side of the map when they went towards that dragon. It felt like it was just a little too overplayed. They lost that dragon, they lost the fight. After that point, SK Prime, they had the gold in the right places. Kedowi started popping off, started controlling the waves. The Herald fight afterwards, that led to so much control. SK Prime, this could not be any more different from their first game of the day, where they didn't really get to play from laning phase.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we always talk about how condensed the EMEA Masters schedule is. And look, it is incredibly condensed. You play today, you have a day off, and then you play again the day after. So you have to hit the ground running. You can't let that first loss like kind of rattle you. And that's exactly what they did. SK Prime came out with a game plan, knew exactly how good they were, and they made it work. For DSYRE, look, it just didn't come together. I like some of the ideas, but the bot lane just got way too far behind. And it did feel like once the DSYRE was just kind of left on her own, there wasn't really a lot for her to do. She felt a little bit muted for a lot of the game.
Now, the positive side of this, and there is one, is I think it was in the interview which we heard earlier in the day with Trouble and Hairprime, was DSYRE play without fear. There are some times when fear is a very useful thing to fear, because it shows you when something is dangerous. This fight was dangerous. This one, even more so. And it did feel like SK Prime, they were just much more cool, calm, and collected. Even though this was such a quick game, the emotion I would describe to this and the atmosphere of it isn't about crazy punches everywhere. It's just taking the correct play time after time, using your engage tools well, and playing out your composition how it's meant to be played. This was textbook from them.
Yeah, it was, as you say, textbook League of Legends. It was just knowing when you're strong, where you're strong, and how to execute with that. So very well done there by SK Prime. And look, for DSYRE, I don't think you're going to be too upset about this one here. You took a win earlier today. Yes, it does suck, obviously, to have your first loss and seeing Matchco do so well. But you learn from this. And I think there was, in fairness, just a lot of kind of small things. Like, straight up, I think that the Rumble just didn't really work that well. I think it was fine, but it didn't have that kind of X factor you need when you take such a large winning lane or winning laner that should have that kind of big impact.
I think while there is a lot to learn from this game, and I think a lot of it is about kind of having a bit more, maybe not preparation, but just like a little bit of presence of mind to say no to some of the big plays. Yeah, I mean, I think the difficulty is now that this is a loss against a team which is, I mean, after the game earlier today, probably fighting for second place, especially with how good FLICKR looked earlier in the day. You would have liked to take this one. They'll have another chance in the second round robin. Bit of a sad way to lose this game, but they'll have a chance at least.
Yeah, they will have a chance. And look, you take those raps on the knuckles and you kind of move on from them. There's not really a lot else to really take from it. It's kind of one of those. It's almost like a scrim game at that stage where you're kind of going like, look, yeah, that happened. We move on, and you don't really let it rough you up as much. But I believe we have ourselves Nash from DSYRE for an interview. Nash, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. Hello.
Hello. Obviously, it sucks to lose. not gonna say it doesn't, but you know, it's one of those games. Obviously, you guys are now 1-1. How is the mentality in the camp so far?
The mentality is still good. Nothing much changes. Then we lost the game, sucks. Then we move on and try to do better in the next one.
Now, Nash, buddy, I have very fond memories of your time on Riddle Esports over in the NLC, where we got to see each other a little bit throughout the studio, throughout the webcams as well. Back then, you were playing with the player formerly known as Jax Plank. You've rejoined on this team as well. What's it been like? And I guess this is kind of an ERL special thing as well. What's it like reconnecting with players that you've played with in the past?
Well, it depends a bit if you connected well with the player or not, but. Rejoining with Jax Plank has been only good, and love playing with that guy, so it's only nice.
And then speaking about your role on an individual level as well, I believe you walked away with MVP from the PG Nationals as well. I think that shows a lot to your growth. What do you think has helped your growth this year in particular?
I focused a lot more on how to connect the team as a whole. I realized that your individual play is important, but you need to get everyone to work together. And I tried to focus a lot more on that, getting everyone a bit more on the same page, and try to adapt that into the game and outside of the game as well. So mostly team-oriented stuff I've been focusing a lot more this year.
And kind of focusing on that team-oriented stuff as well. One of the things which I'm trying to remember who was on interview earlier from your team earlier on this stream. One of the things which came out of that interview is that Emperos. It was Emperos then. I thought it was. I just didn't want to get it wrong. But see, you know better than me apparently. But one of the things that Emperos was saying is that it feels like the PG Nationals teams play without fear. Do you agree with that? And do you think that really helps the way that you play? Or do you think there's something more you can take? It felt like in this game, maybe you could have played with a bit more fear around those fights. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, in this game, we just overcommitted a bit, had a bit too much emphasis on the Drakes. We dropped a lot for it, didn't end up getting it, and the fights went bad. Like in games like this, it's not that much to take away from it other than keeping your focus right in the game and try to keep the win conditioning in mind, because I think we lost way too much on the Drakes, and then when we lost the Herald as well, it was really rough to come back. So I mean, there's a bunch of things.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great catching up with you again, mate. I wish you the best of luck in the remainder of this group stage.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Always good to catch up there with Nash, and again, showing a little bit of fear and stuff like that. But we got to send it to a quick break. Before we go to a break, actually, we got to tell you that there is a watch party, an EM watch party going on at discord.lec.gg. If you want to try and get all of your own takes, you can let people know that how big of a couch analyst you really are. Go ahead, head over there and talk to some like-minded people. But before then, we're going to send it to a quick break before we get our fifth game of the day.